just a few yards from where General Reynolds fell here on this field and died, another man was shot through the chest. Everyone remembers the legends and the generals that fell out here on these fields, and almost no one remembers the sergeants. Today, we're here at Gettysburg to tell the story of one of those sergeants that was not only shot here, just 30 yards from where General Reynolds fell, but he narrowly escaped to the town of Gettysburg to save his own life, and eventually he would wake up in a place where his life began. Welcome back to History with Waffles. We're out here to cover a story about a sergeant that hardly anybody ever talks about. And his story was pretty captivating when I read it. Before I get into this though, I'd like to ask you a question. Where in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, or Antietam, would you like to see us record another video? It doesn't matter where it is, just let us know. Shoot something down there in the comments section and let us know where you would like to see more information about, or a story that you might know about you'd like to see covered on here on this channel, and we'll get out there and we'll do it on those fields for you. Well, the story that we're following here is a man from the 2nd Wisconsin, and he's from that Iron Brigade. Out here on this field, the Iron Brigade is going to make a name for itself. They are going to become a myth, if you will, almost mythological, but they don't know it yet. And that unit, that entire grouping of men, is made up just of ordinary, regular, everyday men. One of those men got shot here on this field, and not too far from where Reynolds went down, and almost nearly the same time. We're going to tell you a story about him today, and we're going to push on from here, head over towards Reynolds Monument. And before we really get kicked off here on this story, I just kind of want to point a few things out and get you oriented with where we're at. So here is the Meredith Avenue that runs through here. You can see with the sign over there. General Reynolds was shot right there at those woods. You can see his marker up. 151st Pennsylvania marker is right here. And off in this direction is what is known as Seminary Ridge. And the seminary is right about there where the cupola is. You see in that movie Gettysburg where Buford's at the top talking to Reynolds at the bottom saying there's the devil to pay. We are going to travel just on the other side of this and find the location where Wisconsin was coming into the fight and talk about the man over there, the sergeant that ended up being shot. But also we're going to talk a little bit about Buford and his delaying tactics on July 1st that really slowed down the Confederate Army enough so that the 1st Corps could come in here and really stop what would have been a rout of the entire portion of the army that was on this field. So it's July 1st, 1863, west of Gettysburg, at a location that's really unassuming and you pass by it every single time. The first shot was fired. At that location, there are ridge lines coming into town, and John Buford has his men out there, and they're going to have to fight dismounted from their horses from ridge line to ridge line to slow the fight down and to allow for enough time for the First Corps to come in here. General Reynolds and his men come in here just in the nick of time, and they have their hands full. That's when 2nd Wisconsin and those darn black hats show up on the scene. Almost immediately after arriving on the field, Reynolds puts his men in position and he orders those black hats forward. And they're all supposed to be surging together across these fields. But just as everything starts to really get kicked off out here, Reynolds goes down. Right back there, just on the edge of the woods. He ends up being shot by a sharpshooter. And to this day, it's still debated as to who shot him and from which unit. Archers Tennesseans are out here, and they like to claim that they are the ones that shot Reynolds at Gettysburg. It's a heck of a claim to make. Really nothing to brag about, but brag they did. And so here we are. Reynolds goes down, and our subject enters the fray. The 2nd Wisconsin is going to go across those fields, and almost exactly the same time that Reynolds goes down, that sergeant ends up meeting his bullet. So Reynolds is going down over there, just in front of those woods. Sergeant Theodore Bahn makes his way out here to this field, just directly behind me, right about where that little monument is right there. The 2nd Wisconsin comes onto the field. By my estimations, it's based on maps. As he gets up here to the ridge line, just about 30 yards away from where Reynolds is shot, he ends up taking a bullet too, and he goes down. And it's a bad wound, really bad wound. Wound to the chest, actually. He ends up limping off of this field back towards the seminary, and somehow, as broken as he is, he makes his way off this field and ends up in the Adams County, the Adams Courthouse over here, which is turned into a hospital at that time. And for the rest of the Battle of Gettysburg, he spends his time in that courthouse under the care of surgeons and nurses and people like that, people that are giving him care while he's there. And it's a really bad wound. Eventually, he's going to end up having to be transferred out of here to another location. Put yourself in the shoes of Bahn. You're shot in the lower left chest. It's a pretty good wound from a Minie ball. Just across the field, right over here, somewhere in that position. And your men are surging forward because you're being told to charge into that position. Reynolds goes down at the same time. You may or may not know about it. I mean, there's a crowd around Reynolds when that happens. So it's possible. So in his dire moment of needs, there is another figure in this fight who's much larger in life than he is, who is getting all of the attention at that time. And Sergeant Theodore Bahn, just like many other men across this field, are laying in agony on this field with that wound in his chest. He's got to figure out a way to get out of here. Well, we're in a pretty good position now because we're going to go over towards the 2nd Wisconsin's actual monument out here. And it's positioned at the forwardmost spot where they would eventually face off against the 26th North Carolina alongside of Michigan here and other units on this field before eventually being pushed back through town here in Gettysburg. Eventually, the young man is taken to the U.S. Army General Hospital in York, Pennsylvania. And when he comes around, he realizes that he's actually in the town where his life began. Just about 30 years earlier, his life started there on a farm. He had a decent family life going, and then when he became a teenager, his mother dies. His father sends him out west to Wisconsin to be with the uncle and to help the uncle out. And that's how Bahn a man from Pennsylvania, ends up becoming a soldier in the 2nd Wisconsin. It's a pretty neat story. Just 2 years earlier, he's in the Battle of Manassas, or First Bull Run, and he ends up having another major wound. This time, it's in his right shoulder, just below the base of his neck. Another bullet hits him, and he's out of commission for quite some time, actually. He ends up serving in like a reserve corps, if you will, trying to get himself healthier, and ends up going into the Engineer Corps. And eventually, January of 1863, he rejoins the 2nd Wisconsin. And about 6 months later, he finds himself right here on this field at Seminary Ridge, coming into town of Gettysburg, with what would turn out to be one of the largest battles in the history of the American Civil War, and one of the most pivotal fights right here that he would take part in and get wounded in. It's an amazing turn of events for him. So if you're out in this location and you want to try to find Wisconsin's monuments that would probably best represent them, you have the Iron Brigade monument here for the 7th Wisconsin Infantry, and then off in this direction over here we have that 2nd Wisconsin as well. And then you go a little bit further, you're going to see Michigan, and then across the street you're going to see the 26th North Carolina monument. I'm going to make my way over here towards the 2nd Wisconsin, and though Bahn wouldn't have made it this far, and he wouldn't have been in this portion of the fight because of his wound, this is where a lot of his brothers are out here, arm in arm, fighting against the Confederate soldiers before they become overwhelmed. So here we have the 2nd Wisconsin's right flank marker. And here's that nice Iron Brigade monument to the 2nd Wisconsin. It's just a marvelous looking monument. And of course, they're going to make sure they've got their black hats on here. And then if we go down a little further, you're going to see that left flank marker out here on this road. Right back over here. It's not a lot of space in between here for these boys that came in to fight. And like I said, before they got to this point, Bahn is already out of the picture, and he's back at that courthouse. One thing I'd been neglecting to do in previous videos was take you to the monuments themselves and kind of describe them and give you a slow motion view of what that monument looked like. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at this one real quick for the 2nd Wisconsin. And starting here on the front side at the very top, you can see that ornate design, and hopefully this slow motion video that I put up in this will show you a lot of details as you're going down. All the way down to that black hat that's in the center there, and then the monument saying the 2nd Regiment Wisconsin, or regular Wisconsin, 1st Brigade, and then all the way down at the bottom it says the Iron Brigade, July 1st, 1863. Now on the right hand side here, starting from the top working our way down, there's really nothing on the side except for when you get to the facing portion that talks about the effective strength on July 1st. It says 302, killed 26, wounded 155, missing, looks like 52 there on that monument. That's some pretty amazing numbers. We'll make our way to the back side here. Again, not a whole lot there on the monument until you get down to the main tablet itself, which talks about the total strength of the regiment: 1,272, killed in action 158, wounded in action 654, died of wounds 83, and died of disease looks like 86. That's pretty amazing. And then that's it. That's the 2nd Wisconsin's monument out here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. In February 1864, Theodore Bahn finds himself in a kind of a reserve corps. He's basically working as a clerk for a surgeon in none other than York, Pennsylvania. So he finds himself back home again. He's eventually discharged for his disabilities in the U.S. military, and he goes on to spend the rest of his life really in happiness. He creates a business. I think he said it was a millinery, and he ends up marrying a woman named Hattie. He has 2 children with him, and he ends up dying at the age of 72 or 78 years of age. 1912, I believe, was the year that he died of pneumonia. He leaves behind his wife and his 2 children in his old age. He was very active in the GAR, the Grand Army of Republic, and was one heck of a soldier by all accounts. But here at Gettysburg, this battle, just like many other soldiers, puts an end to his fight, really. He spends the rest of that time in the service, serving other men, helping them get better and get back to the front. And eventually, his enlistment's up, and he goes back home. Sergeant Theodore Bahn is really no different than a lot of people out here, but he's forgotten in the fray. Legends like John Reynolds over here on this field, or even our old man here on this field. Their stories are told over and over and over again. Tour bus by tour bus comes by this field, and the highlights are given. But it's men like Theodore Bahn out here on this field that really makes this fight what it is, the struggle, the common soldier that made up the Iron Brigade. Sergeant Theodore Bahn. Well, there's really no better place to end a video here in Gettysburg than hanging out with my friend Mr. John Burns here on the battlefield, right across from where Wisconsin would have been fighting the 26th North Carolina and some of those Tennessee boys coming across this field. I hope that you hit like if you watched this video all the way through, if you like it, and I hope that you subscribe if you haven't already. We have lots of videos coming here pretty soon. We even have one from Cedar Mountain, I believe it is, and a couple others from down in Southern Virginia that are coming up. But we're going to have a ton of videos from Gettysburg here this year, along with Antietam, Monocacy, Winchester, and over even on Harper's Ferry. We're going to cover a lot of that stuff. And here pretty soon we're going to cover portions of the battlefield that a lot of people do not cover, to include the fight at Harris, the cavalry fight for Stuart, where he almost was captured, and a lot of the surrounding things that are around Gettysburg and in the Pennsylvania, Maryland area. So lots to come. Help us keep this channel growing. Give us that thumbs up, subscribe, and if you are so willing to, become a member of our Waffle Squad there. And it's a very cheap membership, but it helps us keep gas in the tank and keep making these videos here at places like Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you out there in those fields. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.